Hello and welcome to the Weekend Booktopian. I'm Mark Harding, Content and Brand Manager for Booktopia, and this is a podcast about the books that we're reading. Joining me today, Head of Trade Product, Joe Lewin. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Mark.
We're also joined by Category Manager for Kids and YA, Sarah McDuling. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
And we're also joined by Trade Product Coordinator, Renae Adolfson. Hi, Renae.
Hey, Mark.
So first, we'll discuss a little bit of book news. Then we'll delve into the books everyone is reading, and be sure to stick around until the end of the show when my guests will go head-to-head in a battle for book trivia, quiz supremacy, in a little show we like to call Book Fight. So book news topics. We received notice this week that Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton hit a very big milestone this week, just ahead of the release of his new book, All Our Shimmering Skies, which is that Boy Swallows Universe has now sold over 500,000 copies, which is
so awesome.
Yeah, an incredible
I'm
achievement.
so happy.
Yeah,
It's a deserving book for it.
Yeah,
I feel so honored that Sarah, I'm sure you were there in the room with Trent, and maybe the first 500 copies of that book that were sold were signed by Trent down in our cozy little signing studio at Booktopia HQ. To see the book go from such humble beginnings, we were like, oh, should we order this many? You know, it's a debut author. We don't know how it's going to sell. We just love it. So we want to support it. We want to buy a whole lot of them and get him to sign it because he's such a great guy. And it's been amazing to see it go on and do such incredible things and win every prize under the sun. And I just couldn't be happier for him.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see all those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of signed copies of All Our Shimmering Skies fly out the door as well, which I know Trent has been very busy signing book plates for us this time because, you know, different world isolation. But we're really excited to see how well the next one's going to go.
Yeah, and everyone should keep an ear out as well for our upcoming podcast with Trent. Ben, our fiction category manager, is going to interview him on Monday. So that podcast will be out at some point in the next couple of weeks, which is very exciting.
They have a beautiful bromance.
They do, don't they?
Very beautiful.
All right, moving on to the next quick bit of news. The Women's Prize for Fiction was awarded this week, and it went to Maggie O'Farrell for her novel Hamnet. Has anybody read Hamnet?
I haven't. It's been on my list to read, like so many things, and I do have a copy, but I haven't read it yet. So I guess now I have an extra reason to do it.
Other than Olivia telling us all to read it. Because we know that our beautiful bloggess, Olivia Frico, is just enamored of this book. She was outraged that it wasn't longlisted for the Booker. So hopefully she'll be soothed by this prize. And according to Olivia, very, very well deserved. So I am looking forward to reading it one day.
Is it a strange thing that that Hamnet won the Women's Prize for Fiction but didn't make the Booker list Booker long list cut?
I stopped trying to apply logic to awards a long time ago because I just feel like you can't always predict it. Once you have a shortlist, you can sometimes predict who the winner out of the shortlist will be, but in terms of who's going to get longlisted, there are some sure things, and then everything else is just could be anything.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it's a very worthy winner, and again, I am assuming that based mainly on Olivia Frico's.
And look, you could spend all day postulating on why a book won a prize and what the politics was behind it. But unless you're in that voting room, I'd like to think that they were all sitting there going, you know, she was robbed of the Booker long list. But I'm sure that they just judged the books on their merits and came up with that one.
Now, we're going to talk about the Booker Prize again in a second. But before we do, very quick bit of book adaptation news that happened this week, which is that the long-awaited trailer for the new adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune was released yesterday to millions and millions of views and much hype and excitement on the internet. We fans of Dune, are you looking forward to Denis Villeneuve's take on the source material? I am.
I have not read Dune, but I love a science fiction epic. So I will probably watch this film based on the strength of the cast and just knowing that it's this institutional, like, beloved science fiction epic. I'm definitely keen to see it, and I think the trailer makes it look good. Although I have been interested to watch the reactions on Twitter. Some people think it looks terrible, like too dramatic or too like fraught, with high emotion. But I think it looks great.
The book is a very dry book in a lot of ways, and not just because they're on a desert planet, but
pun one. Can we count them? That was number one pun from Mark. Let's see how many we get.
I'm not sure if my eye roll was audible. I feel like it might have been.
But look, as a big fan of the book, I have to say the trailer looks really, really good. It looks like a very faithful take on the source material. And I read somewhere yesterday that apparently it's only the first half of the book. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where they decide to end it. But anyway, so Dune, that's going to be out at some point in 2021, we assume. I don't think they actually announced a date. So last bit of book news, the Booker Prize shortlist is going to be announced imminently. It's just around the corner, I believe Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Tuesday, I think Tuesday UK time, so we'll wake up to the news.
Excellent. Now, Jo, I know that you have been making a huge effort this year to read everything on the long list.
Yes.
Last time we spoke about this, you had made a solid dent. How far along have you gotten? Are you done? And
so there's 13 books on the long list. I've read 9. I'm halfway through number 10.
Wow.
Great. And
yeah,
so,
I figured, seeing as I had already read The Mirror and the Light way back when it was released, I was already halfway through.
That's the only one that I have read out of all of them.
Well, and it's such a massive one. Like when you look at they have a photograph on their website of the long list, and The Mirror and the Light is like a third of the breadth of that stack of books. It really is a monster. So I felt like the rest of it should be a snack.
So do you have predictions for what you think will be on the shortlist?
Well, look, I have a prediction about the winner. I'm going to skip the shortlist. My prediction about the winner is that they can't give it to 2 people again. They can't give it to Hilary Mantel because that would be too obvious. And they can't not give it to Hilary Mantel. So yeah. I think that the whole concept of the Booker Prize will just spontaneously come up.
Because I only have read that one, and I would love if she would win. And what an achievement to win for each one. Like, that would be, no one's done that, right?
Nobody's done that. No, it would be a world first. I think she was the first one to win for 2 books in a series. And then she would then be the first one to win for 3 books in a series. Like, it's an amazing achievement, and it would be such a shame not to give her that record, because the 3rd book really is just it's just an extraordinary book. The way it wraps up the whole Wolf Hall trilogy experience, the way it finishes is just stunning. So to not crown her achievement with a 3rd Booker Prize would be criminal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do we need another middle-aged white woman winning the Booker Prize? Snore.
I want her to win, though. Like, just because I want the first person to have ever done that to continue being her. Like, yeah. I want her to keep that.
To be honest, I don't mind if she wins or not, as long as I've got a nice big box of popcorn. I'm just going to sit there and read Twitter after the announcement happens, because I just feel like everybody's brains are going to explode. No matter what happens, there's going to be a controversy. If she wins, everyone will be angry. If she doesn't win, everybody will be angry.
Yeah, that's really true, actually. And maybe she shouldn't win. But also, maybe you heard it here first, this will be the last ever Booker Prize, because it's going to collapse in on itself after this year. If you took Hilary out of the equation, what would be your forerunner, Jo?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I really loved Who They Was by Gabrielle Krause. I think that was my favorite out of the ones that I've read so far. It's like normal people, but set in the estates of London. I know every book is normal people except blah, 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 but this one, I really loved I loved the writing. I loved the character. It just felt real, and I don't know how else to explain it, because it was great. It was a real roller coaster ride, and I was completely entranced by it. But on the same token, I really loved Shuggie Bain as well. Shuggie Bain is like Normal People if it was about a child in Scotland, so nothing like Normal People at all, with an alcoholic mother, and he is somewhere on a spectrum of queerness. You know, he doesn't fit in with all of the kids in his working class suburb of Scotland because, you know, he's just a bit feminine. He doesn't do what boys do. He gets beaten up a lot, and he has this really, really rough life, but has this incredible resilience and this incredible compassion for his mother. And the way it paints these suburbs of, I think it's Glasgow, where coal mines are shutting down, there's no work, really, really evocative. So I loved that as well.
The only one that I've read,
so those are my two picks, I guess.
I was going to say, the only one I've read is How Much of These Hills is Gold, which I really loved. I was curious to hear what you thought of that, Jo.
I loved that one as well. Look, there weren't very many that I read that I didn't love. I did love Sipam Jang. It was a completely unique view of the American frontier that I hadn't read before. So, you know, the Chinese perspective on the American gold rush, really, really fascinating. So I'd read Sebastian Barry's, what's the name of that book? 1,000 Moons, something like that.
Oh.
Days Without End.
Yeah.
Days Without End, which is also, it's about a similar period of history from the point of view of two men who are in the American Civil War together, and they become lovers. And so that was one really interesting perspective on that period of history. And then this is coming from another point of view. Amazing. A story that has been told so many times, but when it's told from a different viewpoint, can capture so many new things.
Yeah, I think what I liked about it was that it's like Normal People. If Marion and Connell were siblings in the Old West.
It's always Normal People. Are you sure it wasn't also a little bit like Fleabag? Or like Champion and something else?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a nice place to end our book news. Now, before we jump into discussing the books that we're all reading at the moment, I just wanted to acknowledge that this week our podcast is sponsored by Heavy as a Mountain by Vincent Connolly. When a young Japanese fighter pilot is shot down and captured in the 1942 Darwin bombing, he knows in his heart he should be dead. Duty is heavy as a mountain, death as light as a feather. That's the military code, and it means fight to the death, never surrender, or you'll bring a bitter shame on yourself and your family. He conceals his true name to protect his family, and he's drawn away from his military indoctrination by experiences with ordinary Australians, drawn towards living out his own individuality. It's a tale of the Australian World War II experience seen through the eyes of a deeply troubled man, and it is available right now at booktopia.com.au and is published through Booktopia Editions. Okay, so what are we reading at the moment? Let's start with you, Renae.
Okay, so I've actually just finished a book by John Boyne, who is the author of Boy in the Striped Pajamas. So the book I read was A Traveller at the Gates of Wisdom, which is a historical fiction novel that I'm going to say it's my favorite historical novel that I've read to date.
Wow.
Like, it's really a great work of historical fiction. Usually I find with historical fiction, it kind of it kinds to get a bit sluggish. Like I always loved learning about history and at university and high school, but you tend to get to moments where things get very drawn out. But this book really kept it fresh. So what was so interesting about this book is it's an epic tale of humanity, and it's stretched over 2 millennia. And each chapter starts in a different place and point in time, but it follows the same unnamed narrator, and it sticks with the same family. So this family, they have variances in name every time they move to a different period and place, but their characteristics and motives stay the same, which is very interesting. And it reflects how we've kind of made such progress in history in terms of technology and in terms of cultural aspects and things, but on a social plane, we actually haven't progressed that far. So yeah, it's a very interesting tale about how far we have come in terms of like AD1 Palestine all the way up to the USA and Australia today. But in terms of social equality and our own emotional motives, we haven't actually moved that far. So yeah, I found that a very interesting novel.
Did you are you familiar with the story about the research that he did for this book?
I'm not actually.
There was a story out a couple of weeks ago that somebody was reading the book, and I'm not sure which chapter it's in, but one of the characters makes a red dye to dye some clothes or something. And the ingredients for the red dye, the result of a quick Google search that John Boyne did, not realizing that the first hit on Google was red dye as made in the video game The Legend of Zelda. So the ingredients are all from like the Zelda fantasy realm, and nobody noticed.
That makes me love it even more.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And he acknowledged it as well. He said that he put his hand up as like guilty. I just did a cursory Google for this and I didn't notice. And in future editions, he's going to add Legend of Zelda in the acknowledgements as well.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. What a good piece of trivia.
Is that all you've been reading, Renae, or do you have another book?
I have another book, so it's very different from John Boyne. I also am in the middle of reading The Space Between, which is written by the two girls who created the Shameless podcast, so Michelle Andrews and Zara McDonald. And I thought this was probably a good point in time to read a book like this because I am in my 20s. And I thought I didn't know how I'd be able to relate to these girls because I'm not very mainstream in the way that I'm very uncool. And I'm not on trend. And I'm the first to admit it.
What's the Booktopia? Like, just take that as read. Like.
But yeah, I'm actually quite surprised. I've only read the first chapter, which focuses on relationships, and the girls kind of go through how far they've come from when they were first 20 to now that I think they're about 25, 26, and how they see relationships and how they venture through heartbreak and how it's changed their perspective. And it's a really good metaphor, the name, The Space Between, because it is that bridge between who you were when you were 20, even to when you're 25. There's such a huge gap and there's such a massive learning curve. And you're kind of thrown into this position where you have to make your own decisions and kind of make mistakes. And these girls have a really good insight and they're very witty and they make you feel comfortable. And they venture into topics that you probably, as someone who is shy, myself, I probably couldn't talk to my friends about, would be very uncomfortable talking to my mom about. So it's a really interesting read for anyone in their 20s, anyone looking back at what their 20s was like and wants to compare what 20s are like now. It's a really interesting read. So yeah,
I want to forget my 20s. I'm so glad that they're gone. Sometimes I think I would like to be younger, and then sometimes I remember what it was like, and I'm like, yeah, nah.
Yeah, chapter closed.
Now that I'm 30.
I was going to say, I could write a book about like being in my late 30s and call it The Space Between, but the space between is the space in my knees where the cartilage used to be.
And, well, it's not really pun, really, but that's joke too.
Yeah.
I had my normal people joke before as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed one. Okay, we're on 3.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, Sarah, you volunteered to go next. What are you reading at the moment?
All right. I have visual aids. These are the books.
I think we're just releasing this as a podcast, so this is very helpful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I thought we were also releasing the video.
We kind of want to.
Okay, all right. Well, never mind the visual aids then. I have read 3 books on a theme by accident. I didn't really mean to do it. And so I just wanted to sort of talk about these 3 books which are on the theme of magic school. The first one is Hollowpox, which is the very long anticipated 3rd book in the best-selling Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. This has been coming for a while. We've all been very excited. It got delayed a few times. And the thing I find really fascinating about this series is that it just gets funnier and more magical and more fun with each book. This is just delightful. Like, I could confidently recommend this to any kid, and they're just gonna have the best time with it. And this one is particularly interesting because it's about, keeping in mind it was written well in advance of 2020. It's about a magical disease called Hollowpox, and the way in which the Nevermore community deals with this outbreak of Hollowpox is like uncannily on point, considering this was all written, like, I'm sure, you know, some things might have been changed in drafts, but from what I understand, the book was written years ago. Like, so yeah, it's very relevant for now, even though it's about a kid who's in magical school, and highly recommend it. Love Hollowpox. The other 2 magic school books that I read, not really fully comprehending that they were magic school books, are the first one is A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I always mispronounce her name. Naomi Novik, who is the author of Spinning Silver and the Tremere Dragon series and Uprooted, has written this book where it's very good. It's very dark. It's actually, I would confidently say you could put this in YA, and we've put it in our YA category. But the publishers are releasing it as well as adult fiction, I think because the themes are quite dark. But it's a teenage girl in a school with no teachers and no kind of set classes. The school is all about survival. You get through or you die. And the school is called Scholomance, and it's super creepy and really interesting and amazing. And if you're a fan of Naomi Novik's previous books, I think you'll find this has everything that she normally brings to the table, like really rich, interesting writing, but it also is a little bit different from what she's done before. So it's probably more in line with the Tremere series, which I haven't actually read, but which reimagines the Napoleonic War with dragons. So like, that's that one. And then the other one is The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. And this book is so delicious. Like, I haven't actually finished it. I'm in the middle of it, and it has me so enthralled. I don't know if any of you read The Binding.
Is it set in that same world, Sarah?
No, I don't. It's not explicitly. Like, there's nothing. No, I don't think so. It's a different sort of world, but it does feel historical. So it's like our world with a twist sort of thing. Like, it's not. It's really hard to say. Like, mainly, the concept here is there's this guy in his 30s. He used to go to this really, really prestigious school called Montvert, where you learn a thing called the Grand Jeu. Actually, it reminded me a little bit of the Night Circus. Like, you've got these people training in this magic that's never actually fully, at the moment where I'm at in the book, they haven't really explained the magic. It's sort of maybe a little bit scientific and a little bit musical, but you don't really understand how it works, which I imagine some people might find frustrating. But with this author, I'm there for it. Like, she has a way of just casting a spell over me, and then it's slow moving. Like, it is a slow burn book. You can't just pick this up and be, you know, if you're in a fantasy read for like immediate an immediately gripping plot, you might struggle a bit with this because it is a slow, dreamy build-up, and a lot of it is quite confusing. But I don't know how else to explain it except that I'm happily confused. Like, I don't need to know it all. I'm in it for the relationship between the two main characters, which is slowly developing. And I'm fine for her to not really explain it all to me. I'm just on the journey, and it's just rich and captivating and mysterious, and I'm loving it. And those are my 3 magic school books.
That's quite a thing. That's good, Sarah. Thank you. Joe, what are you reading?
I think I already talked a little bit about the books that I've read because, as we said, I have been working my way through the Booker long list. So right now I'm up to The Shadow King by Maza Mengista. It's pretty cool. It's about a woman who was a fighter in the war between Ethiopia and Italy in the 30s. So a period of history I'm completely not familiar with at all. So apparently Mussolini invaded parts of Ethiopia, and alongside the male fighters, there was a female army, I guess, is what's being suggested by the very first few chapters of this book. And this woman who was born into poverty, she then goes and works as a slave in a rich family's house, and then as the war develops, she gets drawn into warfare, I guess. I can't say that much more about it because I'm only about a third of the way through, but it's fascinating. It's always fascinating to read a book about a period of history that I'm not familiar with. As much as I love to read, the Thomas Cromwell trilogy, and I know already quite a bit about the Tudors, and I'm, reading personalities into areas of history that I know, it's also fascinating to read a book where there's a story, but I'm also learning things I never knew. So that's been really, really interesting. And I will let you know how it goes.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I believe we'll be hearing more from you on the podcast front next week when we actually are doing a podcast specifically about the Booker Prize shortlist. And,
yes, I am.
Yeah, we'll hear in depth some more thoughts from you. Looking forward to that. All right. Well, if we have no more books we want to share, we'll get over into Book Fight. But first, we're just going to acknowledge another one of our sponsors. So this week we are also sponsored by Keto Bites by Heather Thomas, which is a cookbook with carb-free muffins, fat bombs, truffles, and more. They're simple, low-carb, high-fat, sweet and savory snacks that are incredibly easy and inexpensive to make and packed with keto-friendly ingredients such as avocados, chocolate, and nuts. This book has 30 step-by-step recipes, including a full nutritional breakdown to keep energy and keto levels up throughout the day. It is published through Booktopia Editions, and it is available right now at booktopia.com.au. All right. Book fight. Here we go. We're ready. So the first thing that we do is we choose a word that we shout out when we want to buzz in with an answer. So Renae, what's your word going to be?
I'm going to keep with my tradition of taking something out of a title from one of the books, and so I'm just going to say space.
Excellent. Joe, what are you going to go with?
That sounds like a great tradition. I'm going to go with shadow.
Excellent. And Sarah?
I can't buck that trend, so I will go with hollow box.
Excellent. All right. Are we ready? Fingers on button.
No, I hate this part.
Some of these are really easy. Okay. Question 1. Over the past week in France, a small book from a micro-publishing house has become a national bestseller after calls from prominent politicians for it to be banned. What is the title? And I will, of course, the English translation. Yes, Renae.
It's I Hate Men, I believe.
Yes, that is correct. Point for Renae. It is
Catchy title.
By Pauline Alphonse. All right. Second question. Which novel opens with the line, "It is a truth universally acknowledged"?
Hollow Fox.
Yes, Sarah?
I hope this isn't like a book that begins with the line from Pride and Prejudice but then changes it.
I don't know.
I'm going with Pride and Prejudice.
That is the wrong answer.
God damn it!
Oh, Shadow.
I think Renae got in there.
Isn't that Emma?
No.
No.
Joe.
I thought it was Emma.
I'm
Hello,
going
Pops.
to read the complete quote.
Yeah, okay, go with the complete line. But also, can I just guess again?
Yeah.
Is it Bridget Jones?
No. I feel like I'm about to get a collective eye roll.
Oh, is it June? It's June, isn't it?
The first line of June.
It's
The
the
truth
first line.
universally known that the desert is very dry.
And I have a feeling once I read this, it will be obvious what the book is. So whoever gets the buzz in can still get a point. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a zombie in possession of brains must be
Hello, Fox.
more brains. Yes, Sarah.
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Thanks, Seth Graham-Smith. Very good.
Diabolical.
Sarah
Mark.
specifically asked, is this one of those ones where it's like the book, but then they've changed it around?
And it was.
And it was.
Trixie.
Okay. I'm so glad that played out exactly how I wanted it to in my mind. I'm really happy.
Happy to oblige.
All right, this week, the city of Santa Fe rejected a development application from George R.R. Martin. What did he want to build on his property that was rejected?
Hollow Pox.
Sarah.
This is a guess. The Castle of Winterfell.
Look, I'm going to give that to you because it was a castle-shaped library on his property. That was apparently above like the development line, and everybody was going to be able to see his castle.
I can't believe it. I wish he would stop trying to build structures and instead write a book.
All right, now this next question, you could potentially get 3 points. I'll elaborate more on that when I come to the end of it. So what book series am I? I was originally planned as a 6-book series, but I eventually ended after 14 novels. I have sold over 80 million copies worldwide, and I'm one of the best-selling series of all time. My characters include Rand al'Thor and
Hollow Pox.
Yeah, Sarah.
Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time. So I'll give you a point, and I'm going to keep reading it because there is there's 2 more points that you can get. So
yeah, I'm out.
I actually don't need to. I don't need to read the rest because it's Wheel of Time. And so the other part of the question is, can you name both of the authors who wrote Wheel of Time?
Hollow Pox. Robert Jordan.
Yep.
And Brandon Sanderson.
Very good. Excellent. All right. We've got 3 questions to go. Quick points check. Joe on 0, Renae on 1, and Sarah on 5.
Can I just add that these questions are dumb? Because I don't know the answers to them.
Okay, so only 2 people have ever written questions for this quiz. So you either get the dumb questions with me or the smart questions with Liv. And trust me, you do not want the smart questions with Liv. Okay. I feel like this is going to be one that's whoever's fastest is going to get it. But the new Garth Nix book is called The Left-Handed What of
Hollow Pox.
Sarah.
Wait, is the question what the name of it is?
The Left-Handed What of London.
Oh, booksellers.
Very good. All right. I have a feeling this is going to be another fast one. Name the author whose new book, Rage, is the result of 18 interviews.
Shadow.
Joe.
Bob Woodward.
Very good.
Finally.
All right. Last question. What is the title of the upcoming collection of essays by Hilary Mantel?
Shadow.
Joe?
It's one worthy of you, Mark. It's called Mantelpieces.
I love it.
Mark loves a pun.
Love a pun-based title. All right.
Yeah.
So
you love a pun-based anything.
At the end of the night, Renae 1, Joe 2, and Sarah takes a very healthy win with 6 points.
Well done, Sarah.
Congratulations.
Good job.
If I was a competitive person who was super into quizzes, I'd be really rejoicing right now, but I'm just actually surprised.
You're one of the least competitive winners we've had. Most people get really like excited and shove it in everyone's face, or maybe that's just me when I won weeks ago. Anyway. So thank you everyone for joining me today, and thank you to everyone for listening. Weekend Booktopian is produced by Nick Wasiliev. You can find links to the books we've discussed today in the episode description, or you can find them on booktopia.com.au. And you can listen to all of our shows for free on SoundCloud and iTunes, including our recent interview with Malcolm Knox. Until next time, thanks for listening and never stop reading.
Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.
I hope saying Holopox that many times has like subliminally gone into their brains so that they all stop listening to this podcast and then go and buy Holopox. That's the
Next
plan.
time you choose a Booktopia.
I think that you should leave that little outro in, Mark.